Hey guys, what's up? Today I have more of a spiritual, more religion type of question. How would you define God? The word God, the concept of God, who is God? How does that really manifest itself in your mind? Like, how would you define it? What is God? Who is God? Whatever. What comes to mind when I say that? I find that the term God is quite confusing, and it could lead to a lot of communication errors, disagreements, and basically arguments where people are butting heads over silly semantics because basically person A believes God is one thing and person B believe the word God describes something else. So when they're trying to communicate with each other, they end up arguing, but I feel like most of the time they probably agree on more than they actually believe because they have their own definition of one word, and this person has a different definition of what that word means, and it could create kind of like a semantic sort of misunderstanding and leads to arguments. Like, some people are like, God exists. God exists because A, B, and C, where a person might say God doesn't exist because of A, B, and C. And I see this a lot online. I have a very personal interest in seeing what other people's beliefs are, and I really find it, entertaining and intriguing to my mind to see what other people believe in. And one of my favorite things, one of my favorite types of content I like to view online and on the internet is people having these type of arguments where basically person A will talk about their beliefs, and then there will be a video response talking about their beliefs and why they A, believe in what they're saying, or B, why they disagree. And I find it helps me figure out what my spirituality, what my beliefs are even just in my real life are, and I find that really interesting to consume that type of thing. I feel like I'm a type of person that really enjoys learning from people that I might not necessarily agree with, or they see life in a completely different way. One of my favorite persons to learn from and to watch is a YouTuber by the name, his username is The Amazing Atheist. Why do I like watching The Amazing Atheist so much? Because he's very logical, he really thinks out his answers very well, but he is not afraid of discussing what his opinion is, despite other people not agreeing with him. So sometimes he'll have an opinion and he'll still say it even though 95% of the people don't agree. And I'm very different. My personality is very different because I am a people pleaser. I am driven very heavily on making people feel welcome, making people feel good, making people feel happy. My regular job is, I have two jobs. One of my jobs is to be a caregiver. So I work at a nursing home where I'm constantly trying to make people feel good. And the other is like as you can see right here on Cork Tours, I'm a tour guide. So I try to provide people a good time. The Amazing Atheist is very logical, and his motivation is truth. So he doesn't care if he offends people. In fact, he offends people all of the time. But I like watching his channel because most of the time I agree what he's saying, but also because he's a very different personality type and sees his he sees his perception in a completely different way than I would. Since my motivations are very people-driven, making people happy, I'm afraid of saying my really hardcore beliefs because I feel like I don't need to. I feel like I might offend people. But with TJ, the person who runs The Amazing Atheist, he is very blunt. He believes in what he believes, and he really doesn't care what other people think. In fact, a lot of his content is to get people to be angry and almost push people's buttons to get a rise out of them, which, to be honest, I find really refreshing when people do this, when people are just like against the grain, they push other people's buttons. I really find this refreshing because maybe partly because it's not how I usually operate, but at the same time, it's really entertaining for me to watch other people's personality types and psychology and behaviors. I just love seeing how people react to certain situations, which is also why I like the show Big Brother, where they put like a bunch of people into a house and they throw a bunch of different situations and logic, and they're completely in a different element than the real life. Seeing how they react, seeing how their character comes through in different situations, I just love that stuff. But anyway, I'm rambling. What is God to you? What is God to you? Because I grew up Christian, I grew up Catholic, and at first, it seems like Catholic and Christian almost describes God as a person. And growing up, to be honest with you guys, I completely rejected that idea. To this point, I don't really believe in a deity, almost like a person-like being out there, being the master controller of everything that's happening on Earth and the universe. So that idea of God, I just don't believe in, to be honest. But I noticed in the spiritual community among different religions, the word God is quite common, but different religions, different ideologies see God as completely different things. And as I said, communicating with each other, they might believe very similar things, person A and person B, but they end up butting heads because semantics, because of different ideas of what different wordings and beliefs are, rather than finding, hey, we could work together and find some common ground. They end up arguing against each other, where I feel like a lot of people would agree on a lot of things if they just put their differences aside and realized, hey, where can we understand and correlate with each other? So in Christianity and a lot of religions, God is a specific person who kind of dictates or gives rules to everyone down here. But in a lot of cases, I've noticed people describe God as almost like the energy that is within us that connects everyone together. It's like the similarity between the energies that we all have and how everything is connected together in the universe. Sort of like the underlying thing that's kind of controlling and running all of us at one given time. And I'm more leaning towards that camp in my beliefs. But what is your definition of God? What is that? I personally tend to try to disassociate from using the word God just because of this. There's so many different definitions which could lead to communication errors. When I'm communicating to another person, what I want to do is to express to them and for them to experience what my beliefs are, what my points of views are. So I don't want to use language that is confusing to them. You know what? I think it's more important to communicate effectively to another person than it is to be right. I notice this, another word that I notice online a lot that is being thrown up is the word feminism. There are a lot of people that are considered feminists online, and they talk about their beliefs. And there are a lot of people that are almost like anti-feminists. So the first time I learned about feminism was from The Amazing Atheist, and he was arguing against people that were very extreme feminists, who were obviously like very angry, and they almost weren't about equal rights. They were about men being scum. So he would argue against them. So for my first experience of feminism, I viewed feminists and feminism as crazy nut jobs. But then soon after, I started talking to friends that I trusted, and they considered themselves feminists. So I was like, well, these people aren't crazy. They are nutbags like I first experienced. They are very reasonable, rational people that I'm friends with, and I agree with a lot of the things that they talk about. So what is this about? And I realized very shortly after that it's another semantics thing. Some people have these beliefs, some people have these beliefs. And I think using labels like God or feminist to describe who you are is a little bit counterproductive because, for instance, if someone came up to me and said they were a feminist when I first learned about them, I would have been like, really? That's nuts. Because my belief about feminism were that they were about like crazy radical people. But then I started talking to other people and they were very rational and their beliefs were completely different than other feminists. So there's feminist A, feminist B, and they have completely different beliefs, but they both label themselves as feminists or agree with the ideology of feminism. But they're completely two different belief systems, which I don't think you have to be a genius to come to this conclusion. I think this could come with some communication issues and some arguments where it's not really necessary. I feel like Camp A and Camp B could like really agree with each other, and all of these arguments where they're arguing against each other can be probably agree on more things than not, but again, with my ignorance and my lack of knowledge of what feminism means, earlier on, like a few years ago, I would have thought if you were a feminist, you're crazy, until I started to learn more about it. But still, to this very day, I really caution people to really think about how they're describing their beliefs. For instance, if you believe in God or your version of God, and you believe in feminism or your version of feminism and your feminist beliefs, and you go up to a complete stranger and say either A, I believe in God, or 2, I am a feminist and I believe in feminism, well, who knows what that other person believes? You know what I mean? So, like, person B that you're talking to might be this person that thinks that feminism is this crazy, crazy stuff. But they also might be a feminist that believes in equal rights. There's like several different camps. So what I'm proposing is when you're communicating to other people is to describe as best as you can what your beliefs are, rather than describing yourself as a label. Like saying, hey, I'm Mike, and I believe in A, B, C, D, and E, rather than, hello, my name is Mike, and I am this. Because people can misinterpret that very easily. But anyway, this video has been long enough, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Alright, leave your comments below. Peace.